What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing Chapter 4 to an extent. It's not going to be the most detailed or in-depth review, but I am going to be making a tier list of the Chapter 4 seasons and letting you know where I would rank them, and then also kind of talking about each season and Chapter 4 as a whole. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below and let me know which was your favorite and least favorite season in Fortnite Chapter 4. So, for starters, just, to get this out of the way, I think Chapter 4 was, incredible overall. One of the better chapters of Fortnite, in my opinion. I had fun playing for most of it. There was one season that I really didn't like, but I think Chapter 4 was a great time to be playing the game. I think the mini battle passes that they kind of started to do at the end of seasons were really good just for the health of the game. If you've watched a lot of my content, the end of seasons where we're just kind of waiting for that last month to end so we can see what's going to come next is always my least favorite time to play the game. So Chapter 4... adding these mini passes at the end did add kind of like a way to spice things up towards the end, although I didn't like all of them, but the concept I think was very good. We're going to start off with Chapter 4 Season 1, obviously, because it is the first one. I think the Chapter 4 Season 1 had the best version of the map. I feel like the map changes were solid in Chapter 4, but the Season 1 version of the map with faulty splits was my favorite, and I never really minded the medieval biome or theme. A lot of people didn't like that for whatever reason, but I didn't mind. I thought the map was very good. I'm happy that there was map changes over the course of Chapter 4. I would much rather there be map changes that I personally don't like as much than just none at all and have a super stagnant map over the course of the season. But as far as the map goes, Season 1 was my favorite. We also had a really solid loot pool. I feel like the Thunder Shotgun was fun to use. The Tactical Pistol was very fun to use, and they kind of comboed very well with each other. I think Pistol Amp was in the game this season, so you could extend that magazine on the pistol. Then obviously the Red Eye was great, and the Shockwave Hammer was an incredible mobility item, and this was the first time we really had something like this that would recharge over time. We had the Witch's Broom in the past, or the Nimbus Cloud, which was, a rechargeable mobility item. But I feel like the Shockwave Hammer was definitely in a class of its own as far as mobility goes. And I feel kind of set the standard for what people want for mobility going forward. I've actually had this conversation recently with Fortnite OG where people will be like, there's no mobility. And then I list off all the mobility and how there's a lot. And then they tell me, no, mobility is something like the Shockwave Hammer, the Kinetic Blade. So that did kind of set the norm for some people. Augments were added in this season, or just in Chapter 4 in general. They're very good. And then the end of season Battle Pass, the mini pass, was the most wanted event, and I think this is the best time in Chapter 4. Peak Chapter 4 for me was the most wanted event, and I think this is one of the best updates in Fortnite history. They added a bunch of vaults across the island for this update. They added the heisted weapons, some of which were insane, like the exotic Maven and the Breacher shotgun, the exotic heavy. Also unvaulted a bunch of weapons, and they added the heat system, which would improve your movement speed and cause you to regenerate health as you increased heat, and you would increase heat by fighting players and I think opening vaults and other things on the island. So I think the most wanted update was incredible, and the start of Chapter 4 was very good. So I would put Chapter 4 Season 1 at S tier. Chapter 4 Season 2 brought in the Mega biome and the Japanese biome. I didn't like these map changes as much, but it wasn't the biggest deal to me. I just didn't really go to them. But it also added the Kinetic Blade, which was incredible. I actually liked the Kinetic Blade more than the Shockwave Hammer, just because I feel like the Kinetic Blade's melee aspect wasn't as annoying. The Thunder Shotgun was vaulted for the Havoc Pump, which was annoying early on, but once I got used to it, it was fine. I would put this season at S tier as well. It was just very good. One kind of drawback it has for it, where I feel like Chapter 4 Season 1 got a lot better because of its mid-season Battle Pass. Chapter 4 Season 2, I feel got worse. I didn't really like the Star Wars stuff, and the lightsabers were pretty annoying. Mainly the rock one. I think there was one that would throw a bunch of rocks on people, and that could be annoying. And then also the Kinetic Blade was vaulted towards the end of the season, but I think that was the last week or so, so it's really not that big of a deal. We also had the ODM gear added to the game towards the end, which the melee aspect of the ODM gear was super annoying in build mode. So base Chapter 4 Season 2 I think was incredible, but towards the end there was just so much stuff in the loot pool and so much chaos that I really didn't like it as much. This season also had vaults where you could get the Mythic Havoc Pump shotgun and the island, which would spawn in third zone with the overclocked pulse rifle. And the way the vaults would work is that they would spawn at second zone, so you basically would always just loot your POI and then go to the nearest vault location to get, the mythic pump, but also the slurp juice, which was an incredible healing item. And I personally wasn't the biggest fan of this because while we had vaults in the most wanted event, they were just there from the start. If you were going to go to a vault POI, you were going to land there. You didn't have this aspect where like you're always going to go somewhere at second zone to do this in second zone, and then so on and so forth. A lot of people did like the mid-match objectives and the more like scripted gameplay of Chapter 4, but Season 2 introducing it, I was not a fan of it, and the weapons from it was pretty insane. The pump could hit for 250, so it could one pump in 0 builds, and builds with a not perfect shot. And the pulse rifle from Island was also ridiculous. So while I do have Chapter 4 Season 2 at S tier, I think I have Chapter 4 Season 1 above it, just because of the most wanted event and because there wasn't as much like scripted gameplay in terms of like you need to go here during this zone to do this. Next we have the Wilds season, so Chapter 4 Season 3. I'm going to put this at D tier. I did not like this season at all. Maybe we should put it in C, but I'm going to put it in D. This was my least favorite season of Chapter 4 by far, and probably my least favorite like season within the past 2 years or so. I just did not like this at all. Didn't like the map changes with like the jungle appearing. I think the theme of it is cool, like the ancient civilization or whatever is interesting, but like I just didn't like the jungle area. And I talked about this already in the video where like I would rather there be changes that I don't like sometimes than just none at all. So like, you know, they do get credit for at least making some changes. You can look at the map and tell which season it was in Chapter 4 for the most part. So that is nice, but this season was just not it for me. I think the explosive repeater spam in 0 build was just super annoying, especially with like shockwaves and soaring sprints. You could just shockwave yourself up and then rain down explosives fire. And I think there was even an augment which like marked people if you hit them with explosives, Bloodhound, and that was just really annoying as well. And it kind of became at times in 0 build where like if you were fighting somebody decent who was doing this, if you also didn't have soaring sprints and a repeater yourself, you were probably just going to lose to them. It made fights really lame, and I was just not a fan of it. We also continued the scripted nature with Vaults having the Flapjack AR. The Flapjack AR was actually a great weapon. I really liked it. But again, the Vaults were annoying. They weren't as big of a deal as last season, though, since it wasn't a mythic shotgun. And then the Island had the mythic drum shotgun, but I didn't care about this that much because the explosive repeater was so good, and you could combo the pump and the repeater to basically double pump, and you could just output so much damage so fast, or just shockwave yourself up and shoot the repeater down. So I really didn't mind the drum shotgun that much in Season 3. Next, we have Last Resort. This is the heist season of Chapter 4 Season 4, and I would put this in A tier, I think. Borderline S. It was a solid season. Again, I wasn't the biggest fan of vaults earlier on when they would spawn at a certain zone, but these vaults were just there from the get-go, and you could, if you wanted to land at that, if you wanted to get the vault loot, you probably needed to land at the vault, and that made it to where it wasn't as much of a mid-match objective. If you wanted to get it, you had to go there, and there were several mythics in the vault. Most of them were somewhat balanced, I feel like. I think the MK was really good at launch, and then they nerfed it. And then I think the Havoc Pump might have been a mythic, but the real problem weapon this season, I think, was the Exotic Maven and the fact that you could purchase it from an NPC at Rumble Ruins. It was in previous seasons, but it wasn't as just constantly attainable like this, and that kind of really hurt this season, in my opinion. I think that was like the biggest frustration with it from me. The Fortnite Nightmares this season wasn't the greatest. A lot of people didn't like that, but I thought it was fine. It wasn't the biggest deal to me. I would have liked to see the heat system returned. If the heat system returned, I think this would be S tier 100%. Borderline may be the best season of the chapter, but since there was no heat system, I'm going to just put it in A tier. It was a good season overall. I really liked it, but I didn't like it as much as Chapter 4 Season 1 or Chapter 4 Season 2. Part of that could be just because it was the end of the chapter and we'd kind of been playing on this map, for longer. And then finally we have Fortnite OG, and I actually don't know where to place this one. It's going to be between B and C. I'm just going to put it in B, but it's like a B- to C+ type range. It's kind of in between either one of those. And this season was fine. I do not think it worked very well for 0 build though. And the way the zones were made games play out pretty slow. A lot of people blame the map for this, but I think it's the way the zones work, because in Chapter 4 Season 2, they reworked zones and made it to where first zone would kind of start sooner. You would see first zone, I think, the moment you jumped out of the bus, and then end game you would get a collection of like half and half zones, where half the zone would be in safe area and half of it would be previous storm that's turn safe. And this forced people to make more plays end game. And when we went back to the old zones in Fortnite OG, it just didn't work that well. in my opinion. Just made the game play out pretty slow. Also, the ARs being all like bloom based doesn't work the greatest for zero build. The map itself isn't the greatest for zero build either, but I think it's mainly the zones and the loot pool. And then build mode this season, you would think like, okay, zero build sucks, just play builds. And I play both every day, but the amount of explosive spam in this season is like what hurt build mode. So it's like both modes this season weren't the greatest for me personally. And also I kind of talked about at the start of the video where it's like the month long or like the last month of a season is always just kind of a drag for me because I'm looking forward to the next one. And this season being an entire month long kind of had like half and half of that where like it was super new and exciting, not really new, but refreshing at the start because we're playing on the old map again. But also I feel like I did get kind of bored of it quick and just wanted to see what's going to come in Chapter 5. Also, solos this season weren't the greatest in my opinion, and I like streaming solos. And just as far as content goes in general, OG I feel like was harder for me to make videos for just because the game was changing so much week to week, and it was such a temporary season where like most of my videos are like, you know, informative or tips driven, and most videos I would make this season would only be relevant for a day or two, and so that was just kind of rough to make videos for. I think it was a fine season. I think if I didn't make content at all and just played the game for fun and just played with friends, I would probably have a higher opinion of this season, but yeah, it wasn't the greatest to me. I still think 2018 was the time I enjoyed the game the most. I've seen so much people kind of hating on OG, like they don't enjoy the season, and then they're like, yeah, the game was always trash in 2018. And while we do have some aspects of the game from 2018 with like the map and the loot pool, we don't have the player base how it was back then. Like the fact that the game was new to all of us, we were all much worse at the game, but also we were kind of learning the game as we went on and discovering the game. And there just isn't that as much anymore because the game has been out for many years. Like I don't get on the game and feel like I'm going to get much better today or I'm going to learn more about the game today because I've been playing it for so many years. Whereas in 2018, it felt like each day or each week, each month, whatever, it felt like you could like really see yourself improving. And that's one of the things that made the game so fun for me. And if you are newer to the game, you might still have that. But if you've been playing for multiple years, you probably kind of get what I'm saying, where like you kind of stagnate over time. And that to me makes the game less enjoyable to play. Does it make it terrible? No, but like you just can't recapture that, you know, and the way the community was back then, you can't recapture that. So while I still say 2018 is when I enjoyed the game the most, Fortnite OG, the season for me, hasn't been my favorite in Chapter 4. And it would probably be either Chapter 4 Season 1 or 2. While I was talking about the zones, I forgot to mention this during Season 2, was that they did rework the zones in Chapter 4 Season 2, and the zone rework, I think, made the game a lot better, where we had more storm phases, but the games kind of went faster, and we had those partial zones in-game. And also, they added material siphon back to pub, so they added ranked in Chapter 4 Season 2, reduced the mat cap from 999 to 500, and made faster farming in pubs. Would have liked for HP siphon to come as well, where you would get 50 health or shield when you eliminate somebody, but mat siphon is just very good for build mode. It reduces the just time you spend farming so much and reduces how long people can just build away from you in a fight because they have less mats. So I don't know, it's really hard to say between Chapter 4 Season 1 and 2 which is my favorite. I think it would probably change day to day, but as of the time I'm recording this, I'm still going to put Season 1 above Season 2. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. What was your favorite season from Chapter 4 and what was your least favorite? Like I said already in the video, I think Chapter 4 was very good, and the only season that I really did not like was Wilds, and that's probably one of my least favorite seasons ever in Fortnite. But that's going to be it for this video. Give it a like, subscribe if you like some more. I will see you guys in the next one. Use creator code EvolveJake when getting the Chapter 5 Battle Pass, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.